the November 15th, 2021 meeting of the Burlington Conservation Commission to order. First, I will read the notes and then we'll take attendance. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and the governor's March 15th order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town of Burlington's Conservation Commission is being conducted through remote participation. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in this order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to or view this meeting while in progress have a number of options. They may tune to the BCAT Government Cable Access Channel or the BCAT Government Meetings Facebook Live feed channel, or they can join the meeting over the phone at 408-418-9388. And if you're asked for a meeting number, it is 2347-235-0523. The specifics again are up on the screen as I speak. To join the WebEx Live video conference, you can click on the link on the Conservation Commission's meeting page or on the Town of Burlington's calendar by going to the Conservation Commission meeting for tonight and calling up the calendar, calling up the agenda. Or you can go to webex.com and hit join a meeting. You can put in that meeting number that I just gave, and there's a password on the information on the screen or on the agenda if you need it. Comments and concerns regarding public hearings should be emailed to conservation@burlington.org before our next meeting, which will occur on December 9th. Okay, so with that, I will call on each commissioner and signify by saying present or aye. Don Bernstein,
Present.
Gail Lima,
Here.
Indra Deb,
Present.
Bill Boyven,
Here.
Jennifer O'Riordan,
Here.
Ed LaTurco. Okay, Ed, I see you there, but I can see that you're on, but you're having some video difficulty. Okay, and Associate Commissioner Kent Moffett.
Here.
All right. Administrator John Keeley.
Here.
Assistant Administrator Eileen Coleman.
Here.
And for the record, the chair, Larry Cohen, is present as well. Okay, so all votes will be by roll call. The meeting is being recorded. And if we look at the agenda for a moment, we have agenda number 7, 8, and 9 are being continued. Number 7 is a continued public hearing for a notice of intent Redmond Street roadway by Somerset Realty Trust. Number 8 is a continued public hearing for number 4 Redmond Street by the same proponent. Item number 9 is a continued public hearing for number 5 Redmond Street by the same proponent. Okay, I'd like to have a motion to continue to December 9th. The public hearing for Redmond Street roadway, number 4 Redmond Street, and number 5 Redmond Street by Somerset Realty Trust, and it's to be continued until December 9th. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved. Indra.
Second?
Second, Gail.
All right, Don, how do you vote on continuing till then?
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Indra,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Ed? I don't see him on, so he'll be an abstain if I don't hear him. Okay, I can see you now, Ed. Can you hear me? All right, so I'll register him as abstention abstaining, and the chair votes yes. So by a vote of 6-0-1.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be 7-0-0.
Jeremy.
Thank you. The Redmond Street roadway, number 4 Redmond Street and number 5 Redmond Street is continued to December 9th. Okay. First order of business, we're on item number 2 after calling the meeting to order. That's citizens' time. Is there anybody online on this WebEx call or on the telephone that would like to say something that's not on the agenda? Okay, so the record should show there is no one here for that. I believe we have one set of minutes for approval, October 14th, 2021. John, you might want to mute everyone and they'll unmute. Okay. Can everyone-
Larry, Bill had a few, he caught a few edits. They were pretty minor, so I don't know if we need to share them around. They were.
If it's not
fixing
significant,
some,
we
it was
probably,
fixing some sentences mostly.
then we don't have to discuss it. Okay, therefore, could I have a motion to approve the minutes with the edits submitted by Bill and anything else that John found regarding sentence structure? Or can I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 14th, 2021?
So moved,
So
Bill.
moved, Gail. Second,
Second.
Gail.
All right. Okay, Don, how do you vote on approval of minutes of October 14th?
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Indra,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Ed. I don't see him. Okay, we'll call him an abstention. And the chair votes yes by a vote of 6-0-1. The minutes of October 14th are approved. Okay, so now that was item 3. Item 4 is listed as a discussion MVP grant project, Vinebrook Watershed and the Urban Heat Island Assessment Project. And for that, I think we have someone here. Is that correct?
Yes, we have Jeff Malloy from the BSC Group, our consultant for the project. Take it away, Jeff.
All right, the
Great,
floor
thanks.
is yours.
Can everybody hear me okay? I didn't test my audio before jumping on. All right, I see Eileen shaking her head. So yeah, thanks everyone for inviting me tonight and holding a spot on your agenda to give this presentation, which for many of you may be the first time that you're being exposed to this project. We've been working on it for a couple of months now. Mostly John, Eileen, myself. We've reached out to the school system. There's been lots of municipal stakeholders that have been participating in surveys, etc. So I'm going to quickly share my screen and I'll just do a quick presentation here for you, and I'll only spend a couple minutes. That way we can ideally move to question and answer, because I think that will be most effective here. So this is the project title, Vinebrook Watershed and Urban Heat Island Assessment. And just to give you some background information, how we got here, some of you will recall that the state participated just over 2 years ago now in a municipal vulnerability preparedness grant program. The town received funding from the state to go through a 10-month-long process to identify vulnerabilities and strengths within your community. And the outcome of that process, which was a stakeholder-driven community engagement initiative, was what's called a findings report. And within that findings report, there was a series of what the state refers to as actions. So these are projects that the town wants to implement, right? And one of the top projects, I think it was even the top project that came out of that process, was this Vinebrook Watershed and Urban Heat Island Assessment. So over the last 6 to 8 months, John and Eileen worked to pull together a grant application, which was subsequently funded for this work. And so I'm really happy to be working with your community. I was your consultant on the previous planning initiative. So you can see the watershed here. We have Vinebrook, obviously, and then it's two tributaries, Longmeadow Brook and Sandy Brook. So obviously the Vinebrook flows through a whole bunch of different, geographic locations within the community. You all know this already, right? But densely developed areas, naturalized areas. It's just a really interesting place to be studying these challenges. So I'll move on. And this is just a side-by-side view of an urban heat island map and then a flood map. And what's really interesting about Vinebrook and its watershed is the overlaps, right, of the various challenges that exist relative to climate change with urban heat island effect and then flood vulnerability. And the solutions that we're trying to identify are locations where nature-based solutions can be implemented. And so I will move on. And so just quickly about project overviews and objectives, right? So we want to address urban flood impacts from extreme precipitation and urban heat island effect from these climate exposures. And then we want to evaluate this watershed for opportunities to implement nature-based solutions. So there's key project activities associated with doing this study, right? So there's a community engagement piece, there's the actual vulnerability assessment piece, and that involves a data collection analysis. We're looking at lots of different data sources that are available, both through GIS and other places, to prioritize locations to visit when we do a field data collection effort. So in the next couple weeks, we're going to be doing our first field data collection effort. A bunch of BSC, eco staff, landscape architects are going to be going to targeted locations and then field truth what they found through the desktop assessment. We want to develop a prioritization ranking, which can give the community insight into which areas to prioritize first. Where is the best bang for your buck, right? And then there's this RMAT piece, and I can talk more about that in Q&A, but the Resilient Massachusetts Action Team, this is a tool that's used, and it has an associated regulatory structure that's being built into the MEPA process and MEPA regulations. So these regulation and design guidelines are coming at us really fast. So we want to kind of get out in front of that with these prioritized locations, and then ultimately a recommendations report. Then there's the community engagement piece, right? So what we really want to do is make sure that the community at large informs the outcomes of this process, right? We don't want it to just be this top-down driven initiative. We want the community to inform what we're going to be really identifying as the key vulnerabilities in the community. So we're doing a bunch of different things. There's a project website that's been developed. I encourage everyone to go there and visit it. On the website, there's a survey, there's an interactive online GIS data viewer, there's a whole bunch of information about nature-based solutions, et cetera, et cetera. So we're using this website as like a document repository. We're creating infographics and informational mailers. We're calling them backpack mailers, but everything's going to be distributed digitally, and the school system is going to be involved with distributing this information from students to reach their parents. There'll be a library exhibit, a community site walk. We're going to do some public access TV interviews. There's this really cool initiative called Photovoice. This is kind of the keystone of the engagement effort, and this is where we're requesting community members to photo document elements within the community, whatever it may be, through the lens of climate change, and then to provide us with a brief narrative. And we're going to turn those photographs and the narrative into an ArcGIS story map. So it'll be displayed at the library and on the website. And it's just a really kind of cool, interactive kind of community art project almost, where people can express whatever it may be is a need for them in the community. And we can analyze that through the lens of climate change. And what it really does is it's used to support what the municipal stakeholders have identified as a problem, right? So that's a cool thing too. And again, visit the website, there's more information about that. And then the report, right? And as I mentioned before, we're doing desktop analysis, field data collection. We want to create a prioritized list. We want to do this RMAT design standards analysis, and then ultimately a recommendation report. And one of the key things here is we want this report, the methodology actually, we want the methodology to be useful in other places that may experience, similar challenges as Burlington. So yeah, like I said, it's a cool project. This is the timeline that we're looking at. These dates are somewhat flexible, but they're realistic as well. And we've done some core team planning with the municipality, and then we're doing the stakeholder assessment right now, which is an outcome of the surveys and some meetings with the town. I know that I know Gail has at least taken that survey already, I think. But I maybe some others on the commission have as well. But I really encourage everyone to participate, take the survey, give us the feedback. We're trying to find the most overlaps between stakeholders as we can, and then use that information to really drive the decision making as we move forward. Then the field data collection and community engagement and all these other kind of fun things that we're doing to educate the public, allow the public to inform the process. And then I think that is it for my slides. So I will stop sharing here in an effort to, let me see. And I can always I can pull it back up again if anyone needs dates or whatever, but I just like to be able to see everybody as we talk. So I field any questions that you may have, or yeah, comments, questions.
All right, Jeff. So what I'd like to do is first actually go to our staff for additional comments to amplify anything that that you have said. And then would go to the commission, which is our normal order. And then after that, anyone else who is actually on this call and would like to ask questions or make comments. And if we have to, we can thereafter, we can get into sort of we spend a few minutes getting into a roundtable discussion if it's needed. So, John or Eileen, would you like to comment further?
Sure. So just the sort of the genesis of this. I mean, I think we've been talking for years about some of the issues in the Vinebrook watershed, particularly Sandy Brook and Long Meadow Brook. There's a lot of residents who have a lot of water problems, flooding problems, and now with climate change is the additional stress of the heat. So we've sort of been working towards doing something like this for a long time, and then this MVP program came along, and it was the perfect opportunity. Other than that, I mean, I think Jeff explained it really well, so I won't really go into any more than that.
Okay, Eileen?
Sorry, I wasn't expecting to add in. Just to sort of reiterate what Jeff was saying, we have already reached out to the schools. Peter Larkin, who's the assistant superintendent, is going to get stuff out for us. He and the superintendent, I think, do something on BCAT every week. So they're gonna talk about it there. Marge from the Council on Aging is putting something in her newsletter, so we're getting some different populations involved. That's it. I'm looking forward to getting some pictures in and to going out in the field.
All right, so let me, I'll go to the commissioners now for comments. Don?
I think it's a great project, and I think it's very timely. And hopefully there'll be a lot of discovery coming out of it. That's all I've got.
Gail?
Jeff, Don was the person who provided the drone flyovers, the drone
Oh.
pictures.
Yeah, great. So Don, you'll notice on the website, there's a photo. I picked one of the photos that you provided and it's on the site. And then there's a link to your website as well. So there's a little write-up about, the challenges here that it's that interface, right? There's lots of different types of land use throughout the watershed, and the way you implement nature-based solutions is different depending on where you are, right? And so your photos really capture that nicely, those drone images. So it shows all the different types of land use in one place. So thanks for doing that. I really appreciate it.
Okay. Gail?
I think it's a great initiative. I think, there are challenges in any community, in Burlington with kind of the increased development that seems to happen every year. That's a threat to not only the watershed, but in terms of the urban heat problems, with loss of vegetation, loss of man-made structures and reflective heat. other initiatives that I know that Bill has been interested in, and that I think there are some committees in the town related to this, is kind of looking at energy, and with, you know, the lots of redevelopment that happens, it's a great opportunity for looking at whether there should be zoning to, you know, if you're tearing down a house, then the new house that you build has to be energy efficient, that kind of thing. But I also think it's a great opportunity for public involvement and citizen science. And there's a lot of great national and international even sources that are doing things like tracking times of tree, the leaf emergence, times of flower bloom time and things like that. And I mean, that would be, it was actually something that we discussed today on the walk that we did. And it'd be great opportunities to get both, you know, the schools, but also just your average citizen to participate in this kind of thing.
Okay, thank you. Indra?
Yes, actually, the talking about the climate change going on so much all over the world, and it's a great initiative. And thank you for doing that. And definitely, I'm in favor of this. And I would say that this is the time that we should do it, this type of study. And because of the heat change, you know, climate change and all. And it's a really, really great initiative, and we should do it. It's a great effort. And I'm in support of that 100%.
Okay, thank you. Bill?
Yes, again, I agree with what Indra just said, that it's a wonderful time for doing this. I have a specific question for Jeff. Will this analysis of the impacts specifically include the impacts of the planned shutdown of the Vinebrook well fields, where the town has plans to no longer draw 1 million gallons a day from that source? Will the impacts of that lack of draw and the potential increase of flooding because of it, will that be evaluated?
It won't be specifically. It's going to be, it's been discussed already in our core team meetings. It's been discussed. It's, I guess, I mean, my understanding, the way it's been described to me, I guess from Public Works, is that it really should have a minimal effect on the water table. This, you know, when you no longer draw water from, but I don't know if that study's been done or not.
Yeah, I've heard that from the DPW too, but I haven't seen any kind of hydrology expert confirm that.
Yeah, and so this study is not doing that hydrologic assessment. What we're doing is looking for areas to basically implement, not basic, we're looking for areas to implement nature-based solutions. So that could include conservation, right, of land around the well fields. Um, but what we're really looking at is like, where can we create green space? Or if it's not green, is it some sort of hybrid, right? And as I said, the way you implement nature-based solutions is different based on where you are in the landscape. So an area in the middle of the mall's parking lot is going to look very different than the residential neighborhood that sits on the fringe of the well fields. So what we're trying to do is understand what those challenges are. Now, what we're doing is we're taking the data that we have, so the flood mapping, for example, right? And we know there's new flood mapping coming out as well. We know that there is a floodplain, you know, throughout the Vinebrook watershed. So we're just anticipating more water anyway, because we're planning for the event. So I guess I'm being long-winded now, but we're not studying the hydrology of the change in effect from no longer drawing from the wells, but it's a consideration at this point. Like it's acknowledged as such, as a change that will occur in your community.
Okay.
I hope that was a fair response, right?
Yeah, I mean, sounds like you're not going to include that in your analysis. And I think there's a number of people who are abutters to that, who that's their biggest concern right now about as far as water, you know, factors. they're more concerned about that than they would be about the global events at the moment, because it's a more immediate local impact potential for them. And like I said, I just have not seen any hydrology expert analysis of this at all, just the DPW, to my opinion, hand waving and saying, don't worry about it.
Sure, and I will mention that we had our kickoff call with our field team late last week, and they're going to be driving up, visiting the residential neighborhood between Sandy Brook and Long Meadow Brook, and there's some certain areas that the town has already identified to us through surveys, like where residents have seen more flooding than in the past. So they're going to be looking at conditions of culverts, stream crossings, those types of areas to see if there's, any, like widening of a culvert counts as a nature-based solution if it has an ecological component built into it.
Sure.
It's the flexibility of nature-based solutions is nice, right? Because there's no hard line in the sand, like what it needs to be versus what it isn't. So we're trying to throw everything at it that we can in order to maximize the solutions for the community.
And I think it's important to stress to those abutters when you do interface with them, which it sounds like you will, that the solutions you're proposing will help no matter what the source of additional water is, whether it's falling from the sky or raising, from not drawing water. That the solutions would be the same, I think, in many cases.
Yeah, they are. And I'll add that one of the landscape architects that's leading the field effort, he is just amazing at like residential management for ecological benefit. And he's got this hour-long video. I went through a bunch of it. I watched it, and it was him, and I forget which community he was in. I think it was, I don't know if they were out in Concord or something, but he was going to people's houses, and it was set up, of course. He had planned to do so, but he was interviewing the homeowner and talking about solutions that they can do on their property to, have native vegetation and stormwater management and show. So he's an expert at this stuff, and so he's going to be looking at this area closely. So we're in good hands, I guess, with him.
All right.
Good, thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Jennifer?
I think it's a great project. I'm excited to hopefully participate in some of it. I did look at the survey that was sent out. That was very interesting. But I don't think I have anything more to add than what everyone else has already said. But it looks great, and I look forward to seeing everything that comes out of it. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Ed? Is Ed online at the moment?
I don't see him.
Okay, we'll move on then. Kent?
No, like Jennifer said, I went on the website and the survey and all that. Looks like a really interesting project, and I think it's good to see, like, getting the community stakeholders, like, from like getting the schools involved. It's a really good way to start at a young age, and eventually like Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts. Both my kids do those. Those are different avenues that way. So it's good to see this. I think it's a really good project. And I think I hope to see, like Jennifer stated, to see the results. And like you said, Jeff, like good point, like, about different, if you're in like the old Sears parking lot, what goes in there is very different, like if you're in a residential. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of some of the outcomes, because there's going to be different setups, and as Burlington's grown even since I've been here in 10 years, it's really the commercial side of it. So it's going to be really interesting to see the results of it. So thanks for putting it together.
Thank you. Yeah, and please, like Ken, your kids are in Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts. Like, if you can promote that to their friends and the other scouts, tell them to go take a survey with their parents, right? And we want to promote this to the entire community as much as possible. So any help is appreciated.
Definitely.
Thank
Definitely.
you.
Yep.
Okay, I'd like to make a couple of comments now myself. I looked at the floodplain overlay and the urban heat island overlay and so forth on the GIS viewer. And do you have plans to identify sensitive areas by saying, here is where the floodplain is, and with 20 years from now, so much rain is going to fall in a 24-hour period called the 100-year storm. Are you gonna look to approximations of here's the areas that flood and here's the projected area that might flood, so you can identify sensitive populations?
No, we won't do that because it's just, that's a really, really challenging thing to do. And there really isn't, nobody's figured out well how to do that yet. So what we have is FEMA plus space. So we basically, we just count the 500-year floodplain as the future 100-year floodplain is
I-
what we look at.
Okay, that's,
There,
could you, uh, do you, does your website actually show the 500-year floodplain?
it does, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah. And
Right.
so, so I mentioned that Rmat tool earlier, okay?
yeah,
And there's, what the tool is it's online, it's this online viewer, and it allows you to select a location and it prompts you with a series of questions. So it's an exposure and a criticality analysis. That's what this tool does. So it says, all right, is the Burlington Mall, is this area of the Burlington Mall parking lot in the floodplain? Or is it in an area where you could potentially have urban heat island effect? And then it asks you a series of questions, and depending on a few model inputs, it then will, it tailors the question. So it says, like, is anyone impacted if this was to be damaged? How long is the asset out
is
of,
this
out
on the
of,
website? Is this question and answer thing on the website?
it's not, it's not.
Okay,
It could be made available, but really what it is it's it's a design. If you're going into design, what it does is ultimately it spits out to you design standards,
okay,
which then
so,
you have to go to these design standards which have been created. So what it's doing, Larry, is it's telling you in 2030 and 2050 and 2070, this asset that you've identified is this critical to your community or whatever operations it may be, right? However you assign it.
all right. Well,
And it's
Well,
adding
well, here's the reason I was asking that question, Jeff,
sure.
is are you going to, when you get stakeholder input, are you going to be going identify areas that are affected by the 100-year floodplain and convene community groups, and then go beyond that? Say you're using the 500 floodplain as a model for what might happen, and then identify those community groups and say, here is the situation, and and then explain what the study is all about. The reason I'm asking that is because if you're going to be identifying areas for nature-based solutions, some of this may be on private property. And maybe it might be, 50 feet, off of their property line into their property. And it might be that having an educated populace that is affected sort of briefed and might be willing to participate in a portion of their land being used for that. That's why I'm asking, because I could see these nature-based solutions, not all in public land, certainly.
Right. Yeah. So what we won't be doing is figuring out the recommendations and then holding workshops. So that just was never written into the grant application to follow that lineage. But what we will be doing is holding a public listening session at the end of the process where we can communicate to the public what we found, what we learned, where some
So
issue areas are.
outreach to the affected residents, potentially affected residents, that's not part of the study?
No, it's just educating them, allowing them to tell us what their interests or concerns or needs are. And then we shape what our nature-based solution strategy is based on that. Because we're not going to actually, we're not putting anything into design, right? We're just identifying locations.
I see. And I noticed it's very interesting, when I noticed the heat island map and the flooding map, uh, all the areas that flood are completely surrounded by urban heat island. It's almost like the areas that flood are obviously in the middle of the bowl. Is that mainly from your point of view because the localized impacts for urban heat island are that more water runs off into these low-lying areas and creates flooding during the winter in particular? Is that?
I think it's just the presence of the pavement and buildings.
Because I'm not sure I see, other than that, particularly in the winter, I'm not sure. I know it raises the temperature and I know it contributes to climate change and global warming. I get it. But I'm trying to wrap my head around the localized impacts of these urban heat islands on people that are affected by flooding. And the one I come up with is runoff from snow. More runoff from snow.
Hmm.
I don't know. I'll just leave you with that. I'm not trying to
Yeah.
stump you. I'm just trying to leave that. I'm just trying to relate it to a local level.
Right.
It means what this urban heat island study means on a local level. And that's one impact on a localized level. I mean, I get it that it raises the temperature 5 to 7 degrees around when you have these urban heat islands that are radiating heat. I get that. But I'm trying to think, how does it affect what people are suffering through at the moment?
Yeah, so I guess there's definitely people without air conditioning are in big trouble when there's an extreme heat event. We know that already, right? People who want to recreate within the community that are within the commercial district, if it's real hot, people who are vulnerable are definitely at higher risk than if it was a much cooler area. People who want to shop throughout the commercial district, they got to go out in that environment where it's really hot.
I'll tell you from my perspective, after being
Yeah.
associated with conservation for many years, what I see happening is there are more and more people that are suffering flooding problems. Okay, so to the extent that this study identifies areas that might have some nature-based solutions to address flooding problems and provide some mitigation, that would be a real service to the community.
So I agree, Larry, but I also think urban heat is a big issue because, as was being discussed, in addition to just, kind of temperature comfort, it affects anyone with any respiratory issues. So older people, people with asthma, any kind of respiratory issue that affects. And so that can go from children to adults. It also affects air quality. It causes increased problems with pollution. And also at a conservation kind of level, it affects kind of your local flora fauna. I mean, that you might create conditions where certain things no longer exist and so forth. So I think both issues are important, and I think it lends a lot to quality of life. And if you have an area that is become uh, because of development and not thinking of how can we develop and how can we do nature-based solutions to also help not just flooding, but also moderate the temperature, then, there's not much quality of life. And so you may find that changes in property values because, people can afford to move away from these areas, and changes the whole kind of dynamic in terms of a community. But that's my opinion.
All right,
Well,
you make some very good points, Gail.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes, please, Indra.
uh, actually, based on both of your comment and Gail's comment, what I that was coming in my mind, like we are trying to find out where is heat island and where is the flood zone, and once it is found out, the people would be much more panicky. Like right now, I probably don't know what is going on just beside my house. And once this study comes and says, well, it's a big problem beside your house, the panic will go up if there is no solution, which you were trying to say that if we don't, and it goes with both ways. It goes with the flood, it goes with the heat. Both are uncomfortable, and the flood is basement flooding is a big problem all over Burlington. And same thing is the heat. Heat island is a big problem also. And it's not only local, we are talking about locally, it's globally. So my question is, yes, it's a very good thing, but at least first things first, that we have to find out where is the problem, the locations. but we have to think about the solution also.
Right, right.
Well-
Let me throw another one out. Is the study going to look at nature-based solutions that include areas where planting additional trees that soak up a lot of water would help provide some mitigation? Will you be identifying those kind of areas? Today, I was looking at an area that was clearly a low-lying wet area that water would be breaking out onto. And about 15 years ago, they planted a row of weeping willow trees, and they're massive trees, and they take up enormous amounts of water. And the area is kept relatively dry because of that. And I'm wondering if that's part of your scope.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Absolutely. I mean, I don't, we're not going to look at every residential property, right, at that scale. We're confined to our capacity, but we're going to be looking at a lot of places throughout the community. And again, it's what the beauty of nature-based solutions is, they solve both of these issues simultaneously, right? That's the benefit here, is that we're solving flooding issues, we're solving urban heat island effects at the same exact time. Because what you're doing is you're greening impervious space is really in the simplest way to communicate it. But you're right, Larry. Where can we plant trees?
So that's part of it. So will you be identifying sort of in broad strokes areas around the Vinebrook aquifer where some things could be done?
Yeah.
Is that part of your scope?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, we're not limiting ourselves to what is public versus private land, because these solutions have to get worked out. Like, we're just trying to identify the best spots, right? And I'll say one of the locations right now that we know we're really interested in is south of Macy's in the parking lot, where Vinebrook crosses below 95. It makes that 90-degree turn, runs parallel to the highway, makes another 90-degree turn, runs perpendicular to the highway in a northbound direction towards Leahy, right? That whole area of the parking lot, just south of Macy's, in between Macy's and the highway, is in the floodplain. And that is just a fantastic, amazing spot, because it's a lot of area. It's an area where pavement could be removed. It's an area where you could construct a wetland, right? You could build a wetland right there. We don't know if the hydrology works, but there's solutions, right? Even if it was just turned into green space and a way for people to access Vinebrook, right? Could you meander Vinebrook through that area? Through where the parking lot is, and restore some area. But again, there's limitations. It's private property. It's owned by Macy's. Does it change parking volumes? There's lots of challenges that we can't address. We can't come up with every single solution. We can't address all the nuance, but what we can do is just think big and say, hey, here's some locations that the town needs to think about long term, and you're gonna have to figure out how to do it eventually.
Will you be talking, since that's private property that you just referenced, will you be talking to Macy's about perhaps their intent, maybe in exchange for pulling back pavement, maybe we could think about a parking garage for them?
There's been lots of parking garage talk. I can get, and because that's one of the biggest stakeholder feedback that we've received so far is there's this interest in vertical parking
Right.
versus the expand. But again, we also understand that there's people in the community that don't want parking garages, right? So again, we're going to present the smartest solution that we can come up with, and then then the hard work really starts.
And so we're trying to also coordinate this with another grant Melissa Tentakoulis got for that whole region, the whole Mall Road region. And they're looking at how to approach redevelopment there through zoning, and looking at some of the same issues, increasing green space, making it more pedestrian friendly, less car centric. So we're coordinating with her as well.
Yeah, I was just going to make the point that John made. The town has a real initiative now to try to create a more walkable environment in the downtown areas or the business areas. And people aren't going to walk through floods, and people aren't going to want to go out and walk if the surface temperature is 105. You know, so these things can affect the commercial, can have a commercial impact as well by making it, this would facilitate perhaps the transition to a more walkable community.
Right. And we've talked to Melissa about Jody and Larry's idea about the Riverwalk and trying to incorporate that into this somehow as well.
Yeah, yeah. Anything, I would think business would be in favor of anything that brings people to enjoy a nature-based solution would also might encourage them to go into the stores and participate in buying stuff as well. So,
Exactly, to make it a more attractive environment.
yeah, Jeff, could you post on the website the scope of work or the objectives or some executive summary of it? I didn't see it on there, but you know, anybody who wants to dig into the details exactly what you're doing might want to read, saying, you know, maybe not the whole thing, but maybe an executive summary of your scope of work.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great feedback.
Okay,
Yep,
and also,
absolutely.
can you also on the extreme temperature graphs, and when you go to read the axis, the X and Y axis under the climate change tab, the image from EOEA, I actually wanted to look at the numbers, and when you blow it up, they disappear. They're too blurry. Is it
Oh,
possible
no.
you can get a better graphic on that?
Okay, so that's the from the climate change projections.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
You're
Yep.
trying to, I couldn't read the X and Y axis, so it wasn't of much value because when I blew it up so I could see it, it blurs out.
Okay. Yep, I'll address that.
Okay, thank you.
Hey,
All right.
hey Jeff, I just have one question on I mean, for like your stakeholders. So, I mean, you got like, you know, residents, you got community organizations, you got government. Those are a lot easier to touch upon, but I guess the big one is the business side. Like, how you guys going about like reaching out to them to kind of become an active participant in this process? Like, that's one part I was just more curious about.
Yeah, so the municipal departments are going to reach out to their contacts, like Simon, the the other predominant building owners throughout the community. So, you know, all the departments know those people, so they're reaching out to them directly. Um, we are There's environmental justice communities in Burlington as well, and so what we learned in our early planning was the best way to reach the environmental justice communities is through the school system, through students that are bringing things home to their parents. So the schools are frequently reaching out to the community at large. So there's informational graphics that we've developed where there's an infographic that talks about heat vulnerability and flood vulnerability. That's going to go home to the families as well. So we're just using the networks of the municipality to reach as many people as we possibly can. And that Photovoice initiative, it really should be a fun thing. You know, it's if kids with their families or whatever are taking photographs and saying, you know, I like to shop at the mall, but if I have to cross this parking lot in a lot of heat, that's not, you know, my grandmother can't do that with me, right? And I know it sounds foolish, that example I just gave, but that's a real thing, right? Having to cross a massive parking lot when it's 107 degrees and you want to go shopping with your grandparent, right? Like that's something that resonates with people. So it's actually not that foolish. So we just want people, and it's easy to take a photograph, but most of us have a camera on our phone, right? And we just take a photograph, submit it to the town with a 1 to 2 sentence narrative about what's important to you, and then we can really communicate a lot to the community that way.
Okay, Jeff, I would just like to, before we get off of this item on the agenda, I'd like to circle back to Bill's comment. I think it's extremely important. I think it's important that you guys maybe take a look at it. I have seen data that talks about what is the drawdown from a well, from each of those wells. It's like, you know, a foot or 2 feet or 3 feet, like 100 feet out radius from the well. And so you don't have to do much. All you would have to do is take a look at the data, say, for 300 feet out and see if there's a lot of people that are impacted. And if the 500-year floodplain, intersects that, those people are going to be seriously affected. I think the point about the wells not operating and the effect, I think the people of Burlington deserve an answer on that if possible. I'm not sure you're the right one. I'm not saying you're the right one to do that.
Sure.
But that you don't have to do the analysis. That data is available. All you have to do is look at what they say for 100 feet out, 200 feet out, and 300 feet out. Maybe I can even find it for you if you'd like.
Yeah, I'll look into it. I think you make a great point. I really do. There's no reason to, it should be very easy once I find the data, right, to just
Yeah,
run
you
some
don't
numbers.
have to do the technical analysis.
Yeah, right.
The drawdown has been done. I know
Yeah.
it's been done. Okay, so is there,
Yeah, fantastic point. Yeah, I will do that for sure.
okay, is there anyone else online or anyone who would like to circle back for a last comment? Something maybe we haven't, any point we haven't talked about? Is there anyone online that would like to make a
This
comment?
project will be going on for several months, so you guys can check in with us anytime.
I'm sure we will do that, Eileen. We know where you live. Okay, and also, could you also on your website, you mentioned that it was significant, the Resilient Mass Action Team or something?
Yeah.
Could you put on a little paragraph about that if it's relevant on your website?
Sure. Yeah, it gets it'll be basic because it gets very, very complex and technical and jargony quick. But again, it's increasingly predominant within the climate adaptation / resilience world right now, and then regulatory design standards. It's going to be a thing quickly.
And the other thing is the commission, John and Eileen and some of the commissioners, we know the areas that flood. It wouldn't be hard to put a door knocker on their doors without even talking to them and just say, there's going to be a community meeting, we're talking about flooding and stuff, and we know this area does have some flooding issues on a regular basis. And all you have to do is just drop it in selected neighborhoods. And I think you get some very interested stakeholders that way.
Okay.
You don't even have to knock on the door, just have I think they're called in politics, they're called door hangers. Just put them on the front door. It's just, you know what you have a scope for, so I'm not suggesting anything has to be done, Jeff. I'm just throwing it out as an idea to get the most
Sure.
relevant stakeholders into your process.
Yeah, I'm just taking notes. Excuse me.
That's all right.
No,
That's
but
all right.
I
I'm glad-
I think it's all fantastic. I really do. This is great, and I appreciate everyone's feedback, and it sounds like everyone's very interested in the project as well. So I appreciate that. I know the Conservation Office appreciates that, and again, this was a predominant finding out of the assessment that was done 2 years ago.
Right.
Has a little bit different of a name, Larry, I think, because I think you named it at one point. It was like a hydrogeomorphic morphological study of Vinebrook, and we added some urban heat island assessment to it. And so
Right.
this idea goes way back. And so I'm glad everyone remains interested in the process.
All right, Jeff, I think we're about out of time. Well, I could go for the next couple of hours batting this around with everybody in the group here, but I think we have to move on.
Yeah, well, thanks again, everyone. I appreciate it. Have a good evening and take care.
Thanks,
right.
Jeff.
Good night.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Jeff. Take care. All right, so that was item number 4. Item number 5 is we have a public hearing, and I'll read the notice. Notice is hereby given that the Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a virtual public hearing on November 15th. And the purpose of this hearing is related to a notice of intent filed by the Lexington Greenway Corridor Committee for the construction of a trail with a stream crossing at the Burlington landlocked forest. The proposed work would be within the buffer zone to bank and bordering vegetative wetlands pursuant to the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14. The commission will review all information relative to the application and thereafter may issue an order of conditions or in a Burlington Wetlands permit for this proposed project. The application is online, and if you go to the Conservation Commission web page, you will see a link for this project for the project materials. All right, so do we have someone representing the Lexington Greenway Corridor Committee?
Jack, are you gonna, why don't
Yep.
you start, Jack?
I'll start off. Thank you, everyone. Jack Sullivan. I'll be representing this project.
Okay, and who are you affiliated with, please?
I am the owner of Sullivan Engineering Group. I'm the project engineer for this project.
All right, nice to see you.
Thank you. So I'll give the commission a little bit of background on this. We're looking to construct a 3-foot wide trail running from Lexington into the landlocked forest of the town of Burlington. And if you're familiar with where the Wright Farm is in Lexington, and the recently constructed Liberty Ridge Estates, which is off of Jefferson Drive, there's an existing 3-foot wide trail that was constructed by the developer within the Liberty Ridge subdivision. And we recently went to the Town of Lexington Conservation Commission and received approval through an RDA process to construct a portion of this trail within the 50-foot strip of land between the Liberty Ridge development and the Town of Burlington line. And now we're looking to pick up phase 3, which is the construction of a footbridge over a intermittent brook, and then a 3-foot wide trail that would be constructed by hand. And as you can see from the plan that was prepared, we show all the tree inventory 6 inches or greater on this project. There'll be no trees removed. We picked the narrowest location for the crossing. We spent some extensive time in the Greenway Trail Committee did as well, trying to figure out the best location to make this crossing into the town of Burlington. And you can see from where the BVW flags are shown on the plan that we picked the narrowest location to cross. I should note that Norse Environmental did the wetland delineation on both the Lexington and Burlington side. All this trail work would be done by a group of volunteers, and it's all handwork. There'd be no machines involved. We did submit with the notice of intent application a schematic of what the footbridge would look like, and there'd be 4-foot ramps on each end. We did receive a DEP file number, but DEP also had comments on how this would be constructed and wanted some additional information. But you can see how we located the trail system. I located some of the large boulders, trees. Then we actually put flags down how the trail would run to minimize any disturbance areas. And then I survey located those flags so that we'd have a good representation of where this trail would go. Abutters were notified on the Burlington side and Lexington side for this project by certified mailing. And I'll turn it over to the commission to see if they had any questions. I'm sure you did a site walk and you might have some questions on this project.
All right, thank you for that summary. Okay, John or Eileen, could you offer us some comments on relative to wetland resources, the stream and other resources?
Okay, so months ago, I walked the site with the applicants to look at the crossing and determine that that was indeed the best place to cross, both for topography and also for the fact that it was the narrowest wetland section there. So, you know, I think this is the right place to do it, and I think this project is fine. I didn't hear Jack answer the questions that DEP raised. So I think so the notice of intent basically said that it was a buffer zone project. And it's not really a buffer zone project. I mean, there's work in the buffer zone, but there's work in a resource area. So I think what DEP was trying to say is that we need quantification, and it's a fairly simple, you measure the width of the boardwalk, the length of the wetland crossing, and come up with a square footage of wetland alteration. And then you have to basically decide whether or not the Conservation Commission has to decide whether or not that needs to be replicated. I mean, I would argue that it'll be a small amount, And I don't know if Jack has actually figured that number out, but and they're also asking, so what will be the impact underneath the boardwalk? So is it going to be shaded so that vegetation won't grow and that wetland is essentially altered permanently? But I think those of you who went out to the site saw that where it's crossing is pretty bouldery and rocky, and there's not a lot of vegetation, and that this won't really impact the wetland much. But we do need so the DEP does not appeal an order of conditions. We're going to have to put in the decision the squared footage of wetland alteration, and the commission's going to have to find that it's that the impact to the wetlands is not really that substantial as far as alteration of vegetation.
All right, thank you. All right, let's take those comments and let's go to the commission and see if there's anything additional. Dawn?
I was on the walk last week and I got information, we got the information about the area. It looked, I'm relying on John and Eileen to make the determination, but it looked like everything was feasible and doable to me.
Okay, thank you. Gail?
No, I think it will just be a nice addition to connect the trails.
Right, exactly. Indra?
Yeah, same comment. It would be nice, connection between Lexington and Burlington. Would be
Right.
good. But do you know, Jack, how much area approximately?
Was that directed to me, to Jack
Yeah,
Sullivan?
yes.
Okay,
yes.
sorry, I couldn't hear you that well.
The area,
no,
how much approximately?
Right. I will figure out the square footage of alteration. It's minor because if you saw the schematic that the corridor committee provided, we're spanning the brook with a 16-foot section. So there's just a few areas where we'll be within the BVW, but I will calculate that square footage, and I'll also work. I have Mike on from the Greenway Corridor Committee. We'll provide a cross section through the brook as well, because it is going to be elevated. And I do have some spot grades shown at the brook. And as we said, this ledge, so the light will be able to get through, and we're going to be elevated above the brook sufficiently. The detail we provided was more generic on the construction, but I'll give a cross section over the actual BVW and brook area to show our clearances.
Yeah, that would be nice. Good. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
So can I just interject here, Larry? So I will need that fairly quickly so that we can get a decision out the door.
I can have something to you late this week, John.
Okay, that's good. Thanks.
All right, Bill, any comments, please?
Yeah, my comment is the trail is 3 feet wide and the passing is 3 feet wide, the overpass. Is this trail intended for pedestrians only or bicycles as well? And if it is going to be both, is there enough room for a bicycle and a pedestrian to pass on a 3 foot wide trail safely?
Mike, I'll have you field that one. Introduce yourself.
Right. I'm Mike Tabazinski. I'm on the Lexington Greenways Corridors Committee. So I guess I officially represent the applicant today. And that's a good question. In the trail business or trail construction business, we call it a single track trail, which means that it's not comfortable for two people to pass side by side, whether they're walking or on a bike or in any other, or running or anything like that. What we rely on is somebody has to step aside at that point, or the cyclist has to move over at that point. We have no intention of building, say, a 6 to 8 foot wide path where it would be easy for people to pass, because that is starting to look much more like say a rail trail, which is not what we want. We want something that looks very natural and that fits into the environment with a minimum of impact. So it's going to be single track, but we do rely on the general courtesy of the public, and I think the people we have using this area are really get along pretty well so far. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, it
Bill?
answers the question. I just don't know if it, I've heard some complaints from time to time about people, not yielding or whatever. And they feel threatened by bicycles on a pedestrian path type of thing. And now there's more and more motorized, somewhat motorized bicycles, not full, off-road vehicles or whatever, and they can go faster and stuff like that. So I'm just, thought I'd raise the issue.
Anything else, Bill?
No, thank you.
Okay, Jennifer?
No, I think it'll be a nice addition, but I don't have anything else to add.
Okay, Ed?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hey, hallelujah. Sorry I'm late. It was a lot of trouble. I concur with the question that Bill had. As a former resident of the Turning Mill area and that Partridge Road, motorbikes are just horrendous up in that way. And is this specifically another opening for the motorbikes coming off a road? Seemed like they were going to have more opportunity to utilize the trail than walkers. Not sure how that can be answered. The second question I had is, being where it is this also allowing for people to park their cars so they can actually walk to that path?
I guess, Ed, I just kind of have a question back for you. Have you found that there are actually motorcycles entering the forest? Because I've been going there for quite a few years, and that was true maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But I really haven't seen an actual, a motorized vehicle in there in quite some time. So,
They pretty much would isolate themselves along the power lines off Partridge.
okay, along the power
I'm
line.
not sure how far down they would go, but I'm just curious if this would be another opening for them versus parking up there. They'd have a longer stretch to ride their bikes.
Okay, I think the answer to that is to get to the trail that we're building, there's really three ways. They have to come from the landlocked forest, somewhere in the landlocked forest, or they have to come through the Lexington Wright Farm, which is conservation land, and at this point has a barely developed trail system, or they would have to enter through the real estate development on Grove Street through their public access path in between two houses that are very nearby.
That's right.
Yeah, I find it hard to believe, I find it hard to imagine there's going to be a lot of activity that would not, end up with a lot of calls to various authorities that would kind of tend to put an end to that. So I'm really, it's one of the least of my concerns at this point.
Well, it's good to hear.
Yeah. And what was your second question? I don't have a memory
The
for both of
parking,
us.
the barn, the white barn area there, they definitely don't have a good parking area. So if people wanted to park their car and go for a walk, is that going to be improved upon?
That is part of the plan. In fact, the Lexington Conservation is just about ready to release their land management plan for the area. Now, that's just the ecological management plan. So the follow on from that is the infrastructure plan and what they're going to do with the parking lot, the barn, as far as educational center. The plan is to increase the parking, and it is to refurb the barn into like a nature education center and provide some other nature education facilities, and also have school bus parking there, believe it or not. So it's a lot of stuff to cram into kind of a little space, but there is a plan to develop that area. So, and when schools aren't using it, which is most of the time, then it'll be accessible as public parking.
Okay.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you, Ed. Kent?
Nothing to add, but it sounds like a great addition.
Yeah, I mean, Michael, I would accept your characterization that the condition of the trails are barely acceptable for current trails right now. I mean, it's like, it really does need some work, and so I'm really pleased that you folks are more formalizing a better trail leading from Wright Farm into the landlocked forest. My one question that I had, Michael, or Jack, is are you planning to do some some signage and trail markings as part of the follow-up to the production of the trail?
Yes, that is the plan. At least 4 different key intersections, we're going to put signs explaining, here's the change, here's why we did the change, So please respect the change, the fact that we're closing another trail, we're opening a new trail, and telling people where the trail goes, how far it is. Because there is going to be some confusion in the area when we introduce this change. When the development was built, that already introduced some confusion that people have more or less adapted to at this point. But we will put up some signs, and initially they'll be permanent, and we'll get a feel for how people are behaving, and then decide whether we not need to add some more sign pollution that we'd rather not do to the woods in terms of providing more extensive signs.
Right, right. Okay, that sounds good. I mean, if I were to go there now, I wasn't quite sure exactly which direction, 10 degrees left, right, or center I should go.
Mhm.
I wouldn't really know, to be honest with you.
Agreed, yeah.
Okay. All right, is there anyone in the audience for this? Anyone else who would like to make a comment about this project? Okay, with that, I would also accept that my feeling is that the commission should accept the impact as de minimis. When I was out there, the thing that struck me is how rocky the area was that you were going through. I didn't see it, other than the stream being of value, I didn't see a lot of wetlands vegetation that was being put at risk there. Just from what I could see. So, are we in a position, do we have a draft, Eileen, to review? We could maybe close this out tonight.
We do.
We do.
Okay, unless the commissioners want to hold it for any reason, I would suggest we move forward. I guess you can share the screen.
Well,
Okay,
that's
I think John's probably going to do.
a question for John and Eileen. Is this a regulated stream on our stream map or no?
No.
It is not. Okay, thanks.
Okay, so the findings, the project is a 3-foot wide pedestrian trail connecting to the part of the across Lexington Trail system. So it'll also include a 40-foot long wooden footbridge across the wetlands and an intermittent stream. The plastic footings will be pushed into the ground only far enough to provide a stable base and will be on the bank. The boards will be wood. The proposed work would be within BVW and the 100-foot buffer zone to BVW and bank. To go through the filing history, the plan reference. We will add the detail that Jack's going to get to us by the end of the week, and I'll probably change the date of issuance. We have it scheduled to go out on Thursday, but we can't send it out till we get the additional information to incorporate that in the decision. Once again, DEP obviously scrutinized this, so we don't want to give DEP the opportunity to appeal it because we didn't document this well enough. Wetland values and areas subject to protection. We already went through the resource areas. Other findings, we've highlighted that the commission finds that the proposed option minimizes the amount of disturbance and impact to the BVW. It's located at the narrowest point of the wetland while achieving the goals of the project. The wetland crossing will disturb very little vegetation, and as the area is rocky and sparsely vegetated. The rest of the findings are standard. And there's 2 bylaw conditions. We're not requiring a bond, as this is another municipality. And that's basically it for the findings. On to the order of conditions under the Wetlands Protection Act. The administrative conditions are all standard, as are the pollution control conditions. So some of them are probably not all that relevant about pesticides and herbicides and whatnot, but they're standard conditions and we left them all in there. Pre-construction conditions, starting with number 30, we're requiring notification not less than 2 days before the work begins. 31 is regarding the 31, and then the following section are about erosion controls. So we're giving them some flexibility. They do show some erosion controls in the plan. But when we look on site, we'll see if they're really necessary. This is a less than 1 day project, I think. So I'm not really sure that there'll be a necessity to bring in erosion controls. But we're giving ourselves the ability to require them if we think that it's necessary. Pollution control conditions, starting with 38, are all standard. Then the wetland and stream work conditions, 44, no machinery. All this work is being done by hand, and that's required in the permit. No invasive plants. They're not proposing to plant anything anyway. And then the certificate of compliance conditions are all standard.
All right. Do you folks have any comments or questions at this time? You can always call the officer, of course, but if you have any concerns right now, we can address them. I guess not. Then they're not saying anything, so it must mean they're happy. Okay. All right, how about the commission? Did the commission have any changes to the conditions? How does it sound? Anything?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, in that case, could I have a motion to adopt the findings under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 for the construction of a trail proposed by the Lexington Greenway Corridor Committee? Is there such a motion?
So moved, Don.
Second?
Seconded.
All right. Don, how do you vote on adopting the findings?
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Indra,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Ed,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Okay, now I'm gonna close the hearing. Could I have a motion to close the hearing? Do we have a DEP file number on this one?
Yes, we do. It's 122-665.
Okay, the motion to close the hearing, 122-665. Close the hearing. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved, Bill.
Second, Indra.
Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Indra,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes by a vote of 700. The hearing is closed. Could I have a motion to adopt the order of conditions as discussed under Burlington Bylaw Article 14 and the State Wetlands Protection Act for the Burlington, the construction of a trail in the Burlington landlocked forest by the Lexington Greenway Corridor Committee?
So moved, Gail.
Second.
Second,
Good.
Don.
Okay, Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Indra,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
And the chair is yes, so by a vote of 700, the order of conditions for the construction of a trail in the Burlington landlocked forest is approved. You're all set, folks. Thank you. I look forward to seeing the results.
Thank you for your time, and I'll get that information in the end of this week.
Great, thanks.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for such an efficient
Sounds
hearing.
great.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good evening, guys.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Okay. Next, we have item number 6. Notice is hereby given, the Burlington Conservation Commission will hold a virtual public hearing to take all information related to a notice of intent filed by Aswan Rajaveri for the construction of a residential addition located at 7 Freeport Drive in Burlington. The proposed work would be within the riverfront area and bordering land subject to flooding under the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14. The commission will review the information relative to the application and may issue an order of conditions and a Burlington Wetlands permit. The application material is available on the Conservation Commission website. There is a link there with all the application materials. All right, so who's here for this project, please?
For the record, Stevie Cavallo of Farland Corp. Also on joining us is the applicant, Aswin Javari, and the architect, James Risling. I apologize. It seems as if I cannot seem to get the video to connect. I'm not sure why.
It's all right. We can hear you fine.
Okay. So I'm not sure, I mean, I don't know if you want me to share my screen and then just kind of explain the project. If that works best for you guys, or
Eileen is sharing it now.
great. So the project consists of renovation of the existing single-family dwelling. In addition to the renovations, they're also adding proposed addition towards the back. That proposed addition is going to be up on piles. Yep, that kind of dashed area, and then a deck right off the side of it. So the proposed deck and addition is going to be elevated, as this is essentially a raised ranch structure. It's got a garage at grade, and then the living space is above it. The resource areas here include a stream towards the rear of the property, Sawmill Brook. All of the work is outside of the 100-foot riparian zone, but a portion of it is within the 200-foot. The other resource area here is the bordering land subject to flooding. It's in a zone A flood zone with a base flood elevation of 125.5. In doing their renovations, they're looking to relocate their existing driveway. Instead of the garage coming in the front, the garage is going to come in the side with the 2 doors on the side. There'll be no living space on the lower level. That's just storage and a garage. And all of the main living space is going to be elevated above the 100-year flood plain. It's actually much higher based on the elevations. So what they're also doing as part of this renovation is they're installing the smart vent flood vents in the existing foundation. And what that's going to do is actually increase compensatory storage for the entire site. Putting the addition up on piles, really the least possible effect they could have on the compensatory storage. In addition, to offset that, they're just looking to install the flood vents to make the structure compliant. I know there was a comment letter from DEP, but I think John, we clarified this. The confusion was that this was a proposed structure that they were adding flood vents to, and it's not. This is an existing structure, and the addition is going to be elevated well above the 100-year floodplain. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions any of the members may have.
All right, thank you, Steve. All right, so John or Eileen, would you like to make some comments on this one?
Sure, I'll do that. I'm hearing an echo. I don't know, did we send the DEP comments to the commission? Did you see them? Anybody?
Got photos.
I saw them.
Okay, so there were several comments that DEP made. One, they obviously were confused, and the filing itself was kind of confusing about the flood vents. But they didn't really understand what the project was. So the existing dwelling is being totally renovated. There are being flood vents added to that existing building. The new addition will be on piers. So that addresses one of the DEP issues, but they had several others. And they were legitimate issues. We don't have test pits to show that the infiltration structures for the rooftop runoff, if they'll work. And we need that, otherwise we can't approve it without some sort of proof that they'll work. They were concerned about an alternatives analysis in the riverfront area. Which, is a fairly straightforward exercise to go through, but I think we need it. And also, they mentioned the improvement in the riverfront area. So previously, 7 or 8 years ago, there was an order of conditions issued for this property to tear it down and build a new dwelling. And the proposed improvement in the riverfront area at that time, well, actually, there were two. One, the new dwelling was going to be further from the riverfront area than the existing dwelling. That won't be the case here. But we also, if you'll recall, those of you who visited the site, there's a fence at the back, a chain link fence. And beyond that, the current owners, the owners mow considerably beyond that fence, fairly close to the brook. So at that time, on the previous order, the commission required that a lot of that be left to revegetate naturally, except for a 4-foot strip along the fence. So we could certainly condition that, but some of the other things like the documentation for the rooftop runoff, we need more documentation. And also we need submission of the architectural drawings to show that the floor of the building is above the floodplain, or some sort of drawings that show us that, so that the only fill in the floodplain will be the piers and nothing else.
Right.
And if it's just the piers, I think the commission could make a finding that it's a de minimis amount of floodplain fill, just the volume of the piers. But we want to make sure that the building itself is up above and it isn't actually in the floodplain.
Okay, John, one of the, before we go to the commission, one of the comments from DEP was that it was a restricted hydrological connection. With the changing of the vents into the existing structure, can we have a finding that it is an unrestricted hydrological connection, that it's in the same direction that the flood flows? Can we make that finding now?
Right. Well, they made that comment because they thought that the addition was using flood vents.
Right, right. But that's not
So-
the case.
No, and no, so the addition will be on piers, and the addition of flood vents to the existing dwelling actually will increase flood storage on the site.
Right, right, right. Okay, so that's, and you talked about the design and the elevation. And it said evidence for, they said something about they were looking for evidence of proposed roof drainage. What did they mean by that? What are they looking for there?
Test pits.
Oh, okay. Okay, got it. And they wanted to show some calculations for the sizing,
Right.
okay, of it. And then the alternative, that's obvious. Okay. All right, so is it fair to say to the commission that more work needs to be done before we could close?
If I may, when I did the analysis, I assumed that the applicant was going to put some sort of impervious surface underneath the deck and the proposed addition. After discussion with him, he actually is proposing just to leave it as crushed stone. And so when we do that analysis and the comparison of existing impervious area versus proposed impervious area, there's actually no increase whatsoever in impervious area. And so we were wondering if in fact there was no increase in impervious area and therefore no increase in total site runoff, if there would be a need for the roof recharge system, if the commission would still require it.
John, do you have a comment, or does anyone in the commission have a comment in response to that?
I don't understand how there's no increase in impervious area with a new addition.
So there's an existing concrete pad underneath the existing enclosed porch, and then adjacent to it under the existing deck.
And
if
that's
you-
smaller than the addition? I mean, that's larger than the addition?
No, it's smaller than it's smaller than the addition, but underneath the addition it would be totally impervious area that the roof drains are allowed to drain to.
This is Bill. Plus you've got the increase in driveway pavement as an increase in pervious area.
But
impervious area as well.
if you look at the existing driveway, it's somewhat wider And with the comparison of the existing driveway compared to the proposed driveway, and then all of that impervious area underneath the existing deck and enclosed deck, if that's left to remain pervious, it offsets the additional area because of the length of the driveway. So the total net impervious is 0. In
So-
addition, we took also, when we did our impervious area calculation, we took the 2-foot building overhang and then the canopy over the front porch as an impervious surface, when in fact, underneath all of those surfaces is pervious.
So Bill, I think, isn't this a situation where we should just have a table of values before and after so we can just see it clearly?
I think there's a semantics issue here too, in that just because there's gravel underneath the addition doesn't make the addition of the roof, the addition's roof impervious. Pervious, I'm sorry. What I'm saying is, other people have a roof and they put their drainage down onto the lawn. Well, we don't say, okay, then therefore, that's not considered, an addition to impervious area. You happen to be putting it down onto a gravel, but still, you're covering certain amount of ground with impervious area. In addition to a small, as you pointed out, increase in the driveway size. So it's semantics. I mean, obviously the drainage is being handled from it because you're pouring it onto an impervious area that happens to be underneath it. But I just think by definition that a building is the square footage of a building is impervious.
Okay. All right. So why don't we go on to commissioners and see if they have any comments on this or other topics? Don?
I think it clearly calls for more data, the things that John enumerated, and it would be good to see that.
Okay. Gail?
So I agree with what Bill said about, kind of that the addition, the roof and so forth is, additional impervious area. And also it's the driveway, so I understand the driveway is narrower but longer. So does that mean it goes further into the riverfront than it was
Yes,
before?
so we're removing all of, I can't really show you, but okay, if you share. So that gray line, which kind of comes off of the existing stairs up front,
Yep.
follow that all the way. Yep, that's the existing edge of pavement to be removed. And then on the right side, there's a gray line, no, a little too far. Right there, it's slightly wider. So that's the existing driveway to be removed.
But the
What we're-
driveway is extending closer to the riverfront now than
It
it
is
was before.
extending closer, yep.
Yep, okay. So, so I think we do need, I did read there was a pretty limited alternatives there, and that we also should have some improvement to, how is the riverfront going to be improved? Any work that's done in the riverfront requires that there be improvement done. So I'd like to see something about that. And then I think, those other questions that the DEP brought up will have to be responded to as well.
I mean, with respect to the riverfront and how it's being improved, I mean, we're adding all of this flood storage, which wasn't there initially. Just by adding the flood vents.
Well, I think it would be nice to see some, I mean, that helps in terms of flood storage and the floodplain, but I think the quality of the riverfront itself could have some benefit there, and especially if there's mowing that's being done on the other side of the fence, that area could either be left to be naturally vegetated, or maybe a few blueberry bushes or something like that could be planted back there. That would be an improvement.
I mean, we could add a note that the area behind the fence be left to remain undisturbed.
And John, I just have a question. So the shed and the other stuff that's in the backyard, were those things permitted? Were they existing, you know, when last time that, were they already there last time that this came up?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look.
Okay,
I can answer that. When our previous plans, those were there. We prepared the notice of intent several years ago. And those sheds, the pool, concrete, all of that work was already there. When it was constructed, I don't have the answer to. Perhaps the
well, that's
applicant.
okay. That's all right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Indra?
Yes, I have a question to John. John, they are adding the flood vents. Is that an improvement to the existing house? They are adding the flood vents to the existing
So,
house?
so that would be improvement to bordering land subject to flooding, not to riverfront area.
Right, yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I agree with Gail's comments, and of course, we need to see the clearer picture, like you are saying, the impervious area you are not increasing. So we need to see the calculations, how you are coming up with that, because the addition is bigger than the existing, that slab, of what you have.
So
And-
we've provided the analysis to show how we're not increasing total site runoff through the installation of these roof recharge systems. It seems as if the only question from DEP is, you know, they want a little more information with regards to the soils that the recharge system is being installed on, which we can go out and do test pits and provide that information. And
Yes, that also we need to see.
Sure.
Test results, we need to see whether it is good to take the, whatever the runoff, you know, roof runoff. And as Gail said, that, you know, the improvement for the riverfront area, that also we need to see.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what type of improvements, you know, besides, you know, the access, I'm sorry, you know, maintaining the vegetation behind the fence undisturbed, only because there's an existing drainage easement that's to the benefit of the town. In addition, there's also a sewer easement that runs parallel to the Sawmill Brook. So I don't know, as far as, you know, maintenance, what needs to be left undisturbed or open or they need access to. But as far as, you know, just leaving the area behind the chain link fence undisturbed, I think that could, you know, definitely provide a benefit for the resource area and, you know, some sort of habitat, if anything else.
And also need some probably signage there, you know.
I mean, it's a chain link fence that's kind of been there you know, for years at least. It's been there for as long as I've been involved with the project. And we could put, you know, a sign, you know, no disturbance beyond this point on the fence if the commission desires. But I'm assuming that's something that could be conditioned as part of the approval.
All right, let's see what the test result comes, you know, and from there we'll go. We need to see. Okay,
Bill?
thank you.
A question. I didn't get to visit the site. I don't see any trees marked on this plan. Are there any trees on the plan, on the site at all?
There's a limit of clearing towards the rear of the property. And we just located that limit of clearing.
Okay, because my point would be that's certainly a way to do an improvement to the riverfront area, just put in some trees. And it's hard to see, I don't see the rights of way that you mentioned mapped on here, so I can't tell where they are. And
Oh, they're right there, dash line, which runs parallel to would be the north property line, and then it runs parallel to the Sawmill Brook. I'm not sure it's.
Right, I see.
Well,
okay, but anyways, that would be a way to do a riverfront improvement. Would you put some trees on the property? I agree. And I'm glad John confirmed that the increase in the flood storage, which is good, is not technically a riverfront improvement. The driveway, the new driveway, if I'm reading the grades correctly, and I'd just like you to confirm it, it is going to, runoff will flow to the rear, will flow back onto the property?
It flows towards the rear.
Okay.
And I mean, we could provide some sort of stone diaphragm trench at that edge of pavements to avoid, water going much further than the edge of pavement on the east side of the property, which would be the rear of the house. Try to recharge back into the ground. And we'd be more than willing to provide some sort of infiltration capacity of the pavement there.
Well, that would be up to you. I mean, I don't think we would require that if it's not flowing off the property, so as long as the water is staying on the property, you can control it whatever manner you would so desire. I'm a little surprised to see a significant size pool with a concrete patio in the inner riparian zone. You don't have any idea when that was constructed or whether it was permitted?
No, I don't. And like I said, the applicants should be on. I don't know if they want to just, let us know whether or not it was there when they purchased the house or when it was installed, if they have any sort of information on that.
It's not something that, if it was there when they bought the house, then it's not their responsibility, I guess. I'm just curious how that came to be, because it's not something I think that we would approve.
Good evening. My name is James Rissling. I'm the architect. And the Javeris have lived in the house for over 35 years. I believe the pool was a very early addition to the house, back some time ago. So that's a feature that the Javeris have enjoyed for a very long time.
I'm just sharing an aerial from the 90s and the pool is there.
It is there, okay.
All right. Bill, did I go to you? You have anything?
Yes, that was it. That was me speaking, so I'm all set.
Yeah. All right. Jennifer?
I don't have anything more to add. Thank you.
Ed?
I agree that it's pretty well covered. You guys did a good job going over everything.
Kent?
Nothing to add. I agree with what Ed said.
John, I have a question. You said a couple of years ago, did we actually approve an order of conditions? Is that?
It was,
correct?
it was more than a couple of years ago. It was not 19. It was 2015. So that expired. And you issued a certificate of compliance at the last meeting, I think, to clear that up.
Right. They didn't do any work. Is that correct?
Correct.
But as part of that condition, these people were aware of the desire to let the area behind the fence revegetate then in 2015. Is that correct?
Right. That was a condition then. Yes.
And they did not comply with that. Okay.
Well, they didn't do anything in the order.
Right.
They didn't do the project.
It was never even recorded. There was no pre-construction meeting.
Yeah, I guess,
They looked
so.
at,
They weren't officially obligated to honor that part of the
Right.
order. All right. All right. Well, it's too bad. It would have been to the benefit of the riverfront to have to see it today revegetated. I'm wondering whether, given the state of that area, should we be looking as a commission for some kind of written either natural vegetation, or should we go a step further with some plantings? But in terms of to get a little bit more vegetation and shade and so forth. Anybody have a comment on that?
Well, if it doesn't interfere with the rights of way, I would just be in favor of seeing a few trees put back in there.
Exactly. I agree with you, Bill. Okay, anyone else want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
Okay, thank you, Gail.
Yeah, this would be really good if they can add some trees, definitely.
All right,
I concur.
all right. So that can be discussed further and conditioned in the final order, draft order. Okay. All right. So where are
Jeff,
we now?
if you'd like, we're open to recommendations on tree types, just to make it a little easier for everybody and the contractor included. We can, if you have specifications as far as which, type of tree you'd like us to put on there, or trees, we could revise the plan, seeing as we'll probably have to revise the plans to include this, test pit logs for the roof recharge design.
I think you can contact the office. They have
Yeah.
folks you can use.
Okay,
Just call me.
sounds good, John.
All right. So,
So Larry, before you move on, can we just go back to Bill's question? This was bothering me too about the driveway. So if the driveway runoff, you've got all the driveway running off to the rear, Stevie, and it looks like then there's like a high point in the middle. So the water's going to split and go in two different directions.
No, actually, it's going to funnel towards the middle.
Oh, it is. Okay. So then it's going to discharge right where where your roof recharge system is.
Yeah, that's where the sheet flow will flow, which is why we could put some sort of stone diaphragm with a perforated pipe in it and try to tie it into the recharge, just to help reduce runoff, especially during the lower storm events.
Yeah, that'd be good because the driveway is right at the property line there as well at the rear.
Yep, which is why we kind of wanted to pitch it towards the middle, obviously, away from the
okay.
structure and away from the abutter. We're trying to keep the flow going where it currently goes now.
Okay. Thank you.
okay. All right. So is there anyone in the audience for this? This is a project at 7 Freeport Drive.
Larry, I have one more comment.
Yes, please,
If,
go ahead.
if you are going to redesign your drainage system to include the runoff from the driveway, that is more runoff than probably is coming off of the addition. I would want to make sure that it's appropriately sized to handle that.
So you want the system designed to, currently right now, the way the roof recharge systems are designed, and we've provided the analysis, is that it reduces total site runoff based on the total impervious area of the entire site, not just the roof recharge. So we analyzed total impervious area for the entire site under existing conditions.
All right,
And
so you've already factored in the driveway runoff.
that's correct in these sizes. And so the roof
Well, I'm just
recharge
concerned that if
system,
you're physically going to connect the driveway runoff to, that recharge system, you could overwhelm it.
right, but it will be overwhelmed, but the outflow won't be any more than what's existing,
Okay,
what's currently flowing towards the
Yep.
stream.
got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bill, do we need any more? You brought up the area here, the question about how the impervious before and the proposed condition is calculated. Do we need a comparison table with a couple of columns with some detail in it? So we know exactly how it was done? Are you satisfied? You understand?
Well, I guess the calculations that he talked about, do they need to be modified with a different number for the square footage of impervious area now?
No, because I haven't, so when I did my analysis, I took existing and did the analysis based on existing conditions, based on total site impervious area. And when I did my proposed with these two roof recharge systems, I included those overhangs, all the portions of the building. Even, the overhang of the building, the porch, everything up on piles as impervious area.
Okay,
And I did that because I was under the impression that the applicant was looking to put some sort of patio or concrete patio underneath those areas.
okay,
And as far as a table, I provided that in the notice of intent. We provided all of the HydroCAD analysis to show pre, verse, post. So all of the stormwater calculations were provided with a summary of total site runoff for both pre and post conditions.
Okay. So your
Right, yes,
calculations are then conservative. That's good. Thank you.
I did see that. I was referring only to the calculation of before and after impervious surface.
That's
not-
in, we could certainly include just that, but it's in the HydroCAD report, the stormwater, the calculations itself. But if the commission would like to see pre versus post,
Call that one. If you feel we need something more on it, fine. If not, we're all set.
I'm all set without it. I think as long as it's not involved in the calculations, then I'm fine.
Got it. Okay. All right. So no one was in the audience that I heard from. So it looks like we would, John and Eileen, do you think we would finish this up at the next meeting and issue?
We should be able to, as long as Stevie gets us to the material in a timely manner.
Okay.
And just to remind Stevie that that the material will have to go to DEP as well.
okay, yeah, I mean, we'll perform soil tests, soil evaluation, groundwater determination, adjust the roof recharge system design if needed, provide them a revised plans and copy of the soil logs,
Great.
and maybe some clarification with regards to the flood vent, the fact that it's an existing structure that we're looking to increase flood capacity of the area by.
Well, they asked for a revision to the narrative in that regard anyway, so
Okay.
that's fine. All right, so I think that, and you're gonna do the alternatives, Stevie?
Yep, as well as some improvement to the resource area through the addition of trees beyond the existing chain link fence.
Right.
Okay, all right, so could I have a motion to continue the hearing at 7 Freeport Drive to the commission's meeting on December 9th, 2021?
So moved, Indra.
Second,
Don,
Don, how do you vote?
yes.
Gail,
Yes.
Indra,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. So by a vote of 7-0-0, the hearing at 7 Freeport Drive is continued until the December 9th meeting of the commission.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, folks, very much for all your cooperation. We'll see you in a few weeks. Okay. All right, so now we are, let's see, we will now skip down to item number 10. We have an enforcement order, 102 Rear Wind Street. John or Eileen?
Okay, so this is the second enforcement order for this site. The first one was issued when there was work done in the culvert without any sort of order of conditions or anything. This one we issued to allow them to pump water and do an investigation of the condition of the existing culvert, which they couldn't get in and look at because it was so blocked that the water was too high on the left-hand side as you come in off Wind Street. So we issued an ordering them to lower the water in so that they could investigate the status of the culvert. They did that. They've determined the culvert's in pretty bad shape. And I guess I'll let them take it from there to explain further. The engineer is here, as is the wetland scientist.
Okay. Please introduce yourselves.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can. Steve Dresser, Dresser Williamson Way. I'm representing in Holy on this project. And I believe Maureen's here.
Yes, Maureen Harold, Norse Environmental.
All right, nice to see you both.
Thank you. Good seeing you. With the amount of rain that we had this year, it just kind of stayed full and overtopped all year. And it was Memorial Day when just before Memorial Day weekend when we had that last first enforcement order, and we went in there, Maureen went in there and supervised the guys to kind of put it back together, put up some erosion control and such. And we've been struggling to get the notice of intent in large part because without being able to see the bottom of it because of the backup, we weren't really knowledgeable on how to do a restoration plan. So we decided to meet with John and Eileen out there, and Maureen had come up with a thought that we could put in a stone check dam on the downstream side and go ahead in there and pump it out, see what was there, and kind of make a plan from there. So that happened. It does continue to fill up with water, but it was pumped enough that Maureen could see the bottom and come up with a plan. And we've submitted that. What we're trying to do is, just put in erosion control, dig out the culvert and replace it with a box culvert under the enforcement order, to be followed up quickly with a notice of intent to do all that. But would like to, I lose you?
No, we
Okay, the video stopped. So we'd like to be able to get that water flowing. So as I said, Maureen has a restoration plan. I've submitted kind of some preliminary type plans just for the culvert. And basically the process would be, putting in some additional erosion controls, install at the beginning, putting in a temporary stone exit for the vehicles that are going to go in and out, so they don't put dirt out onto Wind Street. Dewatering if necessary, which will which will be more than likely. Removing, scraping off this basically reclaimed pavement in that area, scraping that off first, disposing of it properly, excavating down to the pipe, carefully taking out that pipe, and then grading the bottom of the channel appropriately. And as we need to match basically what the stream bed is like as per the Massachusetts stream crossing regulations. Then we would put in a footing on each side, and then it's an 8-foot box culvert. We come to the 8-foot because of the mass stormwater standings. You have to be at least as wide, 1.2 times wider than the top of the stream. It's 6 feet wide at the stream bank. So we came up with 8 feet for that. That allows us to meet what they call an openness ratio, which is basically the area of the opening divided by the width of the opening. We meet that. So the size of that box culvert is dictated by the Mass stream crossing standard. Sorry. So put in those footings, dig it out, drop the box culvert. It's be craned in once the footings are in, and just dropped in place and sealed together with a butyl sealant, and backfill and ready to go.
So the order, the enforcement order, the wording of it, I don't know if you guys have it handy, but it says applicant may immediately commence dewatering the site to assess the culvert. Applicant may install a new concrete box culvert upon ratification of this order by the Conservation Commission on November 15th. Applicant shall file a notice of intent for the retroactive approval of the culvert and for stream and wetland restoration for the Conservation Commission's December 9th meeting. So that's the emergency, the enforcement order you'd be voting on. So you'd be voting on giving them permission to proceed with a box culvert, but to file a notice of intent for your next meeting, even though the culvert could well be in place by then. It's a time of year issue, basically, and the fact that it's a mess out there. So it's your call.
Okay, very good. All right, so anything further, Mr. Dresser, before we move on?
No, I don't know if Maureen wants to let you know what her intent would be at this time with the plantings and stabilization.
Okay, so could you guys clarify for the commission assuming you get the culvert in under this enforcement order, how much work is left after that point? Is it mostly stabilization and planting at that point?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But for this particular part of it, there's a active notice on this as well for putting the sewer underneath the stream.
Right, right. All right, so let's go to the commission then.
I think Maureen was just about to chime in.
Maureen, are you?
Yeah, so I'm here. So I went out there and I took a look at the site. When we originally went out with John and Eileen, as Steve mentioned, the entire area was flooded. The water was flooded so much it was overtopping the driveway. So fortunately, with lowering the water, I was able to take a good look at the area. I did notice some skunk cabbage starting to sprout up into the wetland. I don't believe at this time that the ponding of the water has damaged the wetland so much. However, I do want to go back in the springtime and certainly take another look at the area to see plantings, how many plantings. At a minimum, I'd like to have the applicant put down a wetland seed mix to the exposed soils that are there. But obviously, given the time of year and the leaf fall and the leaf litter, it was just difficult to determine the herbaceous layer.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Maureen. Okay, so let's go with Dawn. Any further comment on this before we vote to ratify?
No, nothing else to add.
Gail, anything else?
No, it sounds like, it's kind of important to control things there and then, do the filing.
Okay, Indra?
No, nothing to add.
Bill, anything further?
No, this has been a difficult site for them to work, I'm sure, with all the rain we've had. So this will, I think, be an important improvement.
Jennifer?
Nothing more to add.
Ed? Ed? You're still muted, Ed.
Give a thumbs up.
All right, we'll move on, Ed. Okay, Kent, anything?
Nothing to add.
All right, I have nothing further. Could I have a motion therefore to ratify the enforcement order for 102R Wynn Street? Is there a motion?
So move, Bill.
Second?
Second.
Second,
All right, Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Indra?
yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
And the chair also votes yes, so by a vote of 7-0-0, the enforcement order for 102R Wynn Street is ratified.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Okay, next is ratify emergency certification Beaver Dam breaching at Hilltop Drive issued on 10/15/21. John or Eileen, anything?
Yeah, my apologies. This one should have been on the 10/28 agenda. This came in the day after our 10/14 meeting. So it's actually still an ongoing issue. They did breach dams and because they thought the beavers were gone and apparently they're not gone and they're doing some additional trapping out there now. But this is what you probably read about in the newspaper. It's an area where it's going to be an ongoing issue. It's great beaver habitat. This is not the first time they've been there and it won't be the last. But anyway, this was the town hired trappers or a trapper to trap the beavers on town land out there. And then once they were gone, the Board of Health actually hired the Eastern Middlesex Mosquito Control to clear the debris, including the beaver dam, by hand. So that's what the emergency cert is for.
Okay, and you said not entirely successfully. There are evidence
So-
of more beavers.
Yes.
Okay,
So the emergency certification is really supposed to only be for 30 days. So I suspect once they remove the additional beavers, I'll have to issue another emergency certification.
All right, could I have a motion to ratify the emergency certification for the beaver dam breaching at Hilltop Drive, which was issued on 10/15/21?
So moved, Ed.
Second?
Second, Bill.
Second, Jennifer.
Okay, Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Indra?
Yes,
Bill?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Okay, the chair votes yes by a vote of 7-0-0. The 10/15/21 beaver dam breaching emergency certification has been ratified at Hilltop Drive. Okay, next we have planning board comments. Do we have anything to discuss for the planning board, Jennifer? Eileen or John?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
All right, subcommittee and staff reports and updates, anything?
Nope.
Okay, upcoming meetings, the next meeting, one meeting in December, December 9th, which is a Thursday. We have the next meeting after that will be January 13th, 2022.
When do
Wow.
we anticipate meeting in person again? Is that continued this way until April?
It's your call. Most,
That's what we voted, Bill.
yeah,
Till April we voted, that's why I'm trying to refresh, okay.
yeah. I mean, a lot of town boards are meeting in person now.
We can
Maybe at the
revisit after the first of the year.
Maybe we should revisit it on the December agenda.
Do you want that as a discussion item?
How do people feel?
A lot of things that I'm involved with, we put it off until January, in January, we'll consider meeting in person again. So, we can.
And so they're expected to be winter surges.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine. We can revisit this issue for the agenda after the first of the year. How's that?
Sounds good.
Okay. Other business. Eileen, do you have anything?
Yeah, I have a quick bit of other business. I sent everybody photographs during the week from 140 Lexington Street. That was the Citizens Bank. We had required them to do a trash cleanup among some other things before they got their bond back. And so anyway, the pictures I sent were, they picked up something like 25 bags full of trash. And I walked along there and it's really pretty clear. They took a lot out. They said people were dumping in there. There were decks and all sorts of things. So if you're in agreement, I would suggest that you vote to return their $10,000 bond if you're happy with that.
Right. It wasn't just trash improvement. It was for the purposes of improving the riverfront, which
Right.
is what the discussion was about. So it's a little bit more than just picking up trash. It's picking up trash in a riverfront area. So I just want to just add that. All right. So does anyone object to agreeing to release the bond now that they've picked up 25 bags of trash? I thought it looked good.
Nope.
Could I have a motion to release the bond for 140 Lexington Street? Full amount of the bond of, what was it, 10,000?
Yeah.
Okay, for $10,000 release. Is there a motion?
So move, Gail.
Second? Okay, Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes.
Indra?
yes,
Bill?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Ed?
Yes.
Okay, chair votes yes. The bond for 140 Lexington Street, full amount is voted approval for release.
Thank you.
All right, anything else?
Nope.
Yeah, Gail led a walk today.
Oh,
Wanna
yeah.
tell
How
us
did
a-
that go, Gail?
Yeah, we had a small group and it was a nice day to get out. The people that were there were, definitely interested in pursuing. So it'd be nice if, some other commissioners think about, like, if they want to, lead a walk, I'll be willing to do another, or make suggestions. And it's a good way to get people more aware of conservation lands that aren't used as well. And also potentially to, the more people out on the lands, the the more support we get in the future for protecting land, but also the more eyes on the trails, the less abuse as well. And also Rob, the conservation intern, he's done some nice initial workout at Mill Pond and putting up some trail markers so that the less used trails, the wooded trails, are a little bit easier to follow, and he's going to continue doing that. So that was nice today as well to see that.
And you went to Mill Pond, Gail?
We went to the forested trail, so we went to the blue trail. We didn't go around the pond.
I see. Okay. Very good.
What kind of a turnout did you have?
It was a small group. There was 3, 6, 7, including me.
Cool.
Very good. Okay, so is there anything else?
Nope.
All right, could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please?
So moved. Bill?
Second, Indra.
I guess we have a third.
Don, how do you vote?
Yes.
Gail?
Yes, please.
Indra?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Jennifer?
Yep.
Ed?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. The meeting is adjourned by a vote of 7-0-0. Have a good night, everyone.